Hello, I'm Org. In this video I will review the Curtiss P-23, a nice little US biplane down at Tier 2 and the starting point of the Mustang line. But first to tell you a bit about the history of this aircraft. The P-23 wasn't a significant aircraft in history. It was built in prototype form and tested, but was never adopted into service. It was kind of just a single step in the long line of Curtiss Hawk fighters that is very important in US Army Air Corps history and in the low tiers of World of Warplanes. The P-23, Hawk 75M, P-36, P-40, F-11C, Hawk 3, and probably a few others, are all kind of a part of the gradual evolution of designs that started with the PW-8 back in 1923 and ended with the P-40 in the Second World War. The thing is that the beginning of this evolutionary process did not come out of competence, but was instead the result of politics. Curtiss had developed the PW-8, which they wanted to sell to the Army Air Corps. The only problem was that it was inferior to the Boeing PW-9 in almost every respect. The solution to this problem was not to improve the PW-8, but was instead to help Brigadier General Mitchell to beat the record for a time to do a flight across the United States. In exchange for that help, the Army Air Corps purchased 45 PW-8s. Later on, the Army Air Corps asked Curtiss to put the wings of the Boeing PW-9 onto the PW-8, which led to the design called the P-1. A bigger engine resulted in the P-2 Hawk. An even bigger engine and minor redesigns was the P-3 Hawk. A turbocharged engine was the P-5 Super Hawk. The P-6 was a fairly significant redesign of the P-3 design, and the P-23 was an attempt to get better performance out of the P-6 design by lightening the fuselage and streamlining it quite significantly. However, by now it was 1932 and the P-23 was in competition with the Boeing designed P-26P shooter to be the Army Air Corps' frontline fighter. And the P-26 was a fairly modern monoplane fighter design for its time. So despite having very good performance for the time and for a biplane, the P-23 just lost out to the monoplane Boeing design. In fact, the P-23 was the last biplane fighter built for the US Army Air Corps. Even though it wasn't adopted, it was built for them. There is kind of an epilogue to this story, however. It is that the wings of the P-23 prototype were reused for the F-11C prototype, which the US Navy ended up adopting. In World of Warplanes, the P-23 sits at the start of the line of fighters leading up to the P-51s. It's a fairly capable fighter for its tier, with a mixed bag of tricks for dealing with its opponents. In terms of firepower, the P-23 is on the weak side of average for Tier 2. It gets a choice of either two 7.62mm machine guns, or a single 7.62mm and a 12.7mm machine gun. I think there's no reason not to take the 12.7mm machine gun. It does give you a significant boost to firepower, and while it does decrease your flight performance, it doesn't really hold you back enough against your competition to justify not taking it. The P-23 gets the best airspeed rating of the fighters at this tier. This is largely based on its 500 km/h dive speed, which is very good. For the record, it's only slightly worse than the A6M1 up at Tier 4. The top speed and rate of climb of P-23 is also on the good side of average for Tier 2, but there are a number of aircraft which can perform better than it in a climb or level flight. The P-23 has a stall speed of 70 km/h, which is best equal at this tier, but it's equal with almost every other aircraft at the tier. The manoeuvrability of the P-23 is more average than its airspeed. The rate of turn is better than the Demon and the German fighters, but worse than everything else. The rate of roll of the P-23 is actually very good, second only to the Heinkel 51, but the rate of roll advantage can be very useful in the hands of a skilled pilot, but that's not really me. I did fairly well in the P-23. Over 50 games in this aircraft, I scored 68 kills and 16 assists to give me a 68% win rate. But despite those results, I think that the P-23 can be a difficult aircraft to fly well, and in that respect it's kind of a good introduction to the Mustang line. It has the best altitude performance of the fighters at this tier, but it only has an average rate of climb, so your opponents may very well start above you, and you may not be able to climb away from them. It has a very good dive speed to make slashing attacks on your enemies and escape, but doesn't have the firepower to capitalise on the brief firing opportunities that you will get. Really, the P-23 has a mixed flight performance where the strengths of this aircraft are all countered by one of the aircraft's weaknesses. This means that I tend to fly it in a very situational manner. If fighting a German aircraft, I would tend to play as a turn fighter, as I could turn inside them, but they will outclimb me, and they probably started at a higher altitude than me. The one advantage you really have in fighting German fighters is that once you are on their tail, they can't dive to escape and they can't outturn you, so you're pretty well stuck there unless they can force you into a stall. When fighting Japanese or Soviet fighters, kind of best to dive away to disengage, because, well, there's no way they'll be able to keep up with you in the dive, and there's no point sticking around since they'll be able to outturn you. You have an advantage in both firepower and hit points over those aircraft, so head-on attacks are viable, particularly since your 12.7mm machine gun gives you a pretty significant range advantage over them. Against the British, I think you're best off flying as a close-in energy fighter. You have a better rate of climb and stall speed than those aircraft, so you should be able to force them into a stall very quickly, especially if you're above them to begin with. The aircraft I have the most difficulty with is the F2F. It has the same firepower as you, but more hit points, so head-on attacks are unwise. It has a better rate of climb and equal stall speed to you, so close-in energy fighting is also not going to work. It can turn inside you, so you can't really turn fight it. The only real advantage you have over the F2F are your dive speed and rate of roll, but I find it difficult to turn these into killing manoeuvres. But scissors and barrel rolls will at least delay your death, even if you cannot manage to use these moves to turn back on the enemy. They can still be very effective in defending yourself. Anyway, one other thing that should be mentioned is that you get pretty horrible matchmaking at Tier 2, so you go up against Tier 4, and the gap between Tier 2 and Tier 4 is pretty horrendous. And as you see here, I'm getting absolutely wrecked by this tail gunner of this Tier 4 ground attack aircraft. But luckily, with 6 points left, I'm pretty sure I'm about to get the kill here. So, well, we won that game. And this is the last game I'm going to show you. It's pretty typical for the matchmaking you get at this tier. It's a 3-on-3, but luckily enough it's only Tier 2. But, well, it's pretty average. So you see here, I've plotted an AR-68, and I'm guessing that one's not... Oh, it might be fully upgraded. Probably doesn't have 100% pilot, because I've actually managed to outclimb it. And bad news here. One of our teammates has gone racing off ahead at low altitude, so it's about to get ganged up on by 3 enemy fighters. And because it's still running away from us, I'm not going to be able to get down there and help it. So instead I'm kind of slowing down to let the rest of my team catch up. And unfortunately, this is a game where, you know, it's often decided by which team has the worst players as opposed to which team has the best players. Because basically it looks like me and this other guy are going to have to fight 2-on-3, which puts us at a pretty huge disadvantage regardless of our skill. Anyway, we're getting close, so it's time to dive down and turn some of this altitude energy into speed. That ally of mine's died, but it actually lasted long enough for me and my demon friend here to arrive. And I'll go for the F2F first, because it's kind of the biggest threat for me, because I can't really deal with it very effectively. Put a bit of fire in, but don't quite get the kill, but my ally manages to get behind me and immediately pull up and decide it's safe enough to go back in and go for the AR-68, because I figure with its firepower it can do the most damage to my ally, so I want to get it out of the game quickly as I can, take away about half its health, and then go into another bit of a loop and try and come back round on it. But the next few passes, I do alright on that one, Actually, I get the kill there. But when I'm fighting this P-23, I actually usually botch up my approaches, so I don't do a lot of damage. I took away about a quarter of its health and try going up again and coming back over, but the angle's not great. Do a bit more damage, but it's going to take a lot more than that to kill this guy. And of course we're evenly matched, so I can't really outfly it either. And that should have been a really good opportunity, but I missed it. Instead took away about 20% of its health, but really I should have been almost dead by now. And that one was looking to be absolutely terrible, so I break off and go around again. And this one's not a lot better. But fortunately it turns to try and dogfight with me and then goes back onto the demon, which gives me a completely different angle here, where it looked like it thought it was going to go head on with me, but I able to put a few shots into the belly, but my team gets my assist, and that's the P-23. So I say it's a very capable fighter for this tier, and I've actually really enjoyed playing it, even though I didn't play it that much. Anyway, I hope you found this video useful and informative or whatever, and I'll see you all next time.